All right, so now we're going to move over to Lana in Alaska. So we're going from Oregon. We're going to the Northwest this time, and now further
flight.
Northwest. Okay, Lana, how are you today?
Good.
Good. How may we help you?
Um, I've never done this before, so this is a little nerve-wracking.
Okay.
So I was in a relationship with someone for 5 years, and I have a couple of kids from prior marriage, and we lived together for 4 years, and there are a lot of feelings, but I feel like I pushed the person away because I've allowed my insecurities to sometimes overtake me, and I acted out, and not in the nicest way.
What did you do, Lana, when you say you acted out?
So when his job took him away for months at a time, I would feel like he didn't care, or I felt unloved, and so I would say things like, well, maybe we should just break up. I will start packing your things. So I've done something as bad as that. And so anyway, when I did it last time, he actually has had enough and he left. And I guess I'm trying to figure out, there is a lot of information everywhere about, if you work on yourself and then you show your changes and you can still reconcile, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm just wondering, how do I show the changes to the person who feels like he had to make a decision and stick by it, and who ended up leaving the state and, going back to where he's from originally. And, when there's so much distance and so much time has gone by, is there any possibility to...
How much time has gone by?
So we've been apart for a year. We've been in contact mostly because I reach out, but it's been a year.
And when you reach out and contact him, how does he reply?
Very politely. He tries to be very nice, but it's it's often just kind of like, yeah, I'm fine, or he's been pretty clear about moving on just because he doesn't believe that our relationship could be healthier. But I have done a lot of work. I've been counseling, reading, listening to your podcasts. I've listened to some coaches, but most often it's me who reaches out.
Okay, and so his responses demonstrate no emotion one way or the other.
No, he feels bad, I think, because, we were together a long time. My kids miss him, et cetera, et cetera. But I feel like he is, he did have to make a decision. He had to make he moved. It's a big thing. And so I feel like he's just really sticking to it and not open to the possibility, who would want to take a chance again and for things to not work out again. It's like wasting life away on trying.
Well, it could feel that way, without a doubt. And he's been gone for a year, and he's a long way away from you, from what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, he works, his summer job takes him away, so every summer when we were together, he would be gone for quite a bit, 2-3 weeks at a time. So being apart is not as... I think because of that, it doesn't feel like it's been that long to me. But yeah, as of now, he's traveling back to his home state.
And that's a long way from where you live, is what I'm saying, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything's pretty far from Alaska, so.
Well, we moved to another state than Alaska. I guess it's going to be a distance no matter what. It's a difficult thing. Well, Kimberly is our resident expert on what we call PIEs: physical, intellectual, emotional, spiritual. And when people change in those ways, we hope that the other person sees. But admittedly, and you understand this, that when there is no access to the other person other than perfunctory phone calls, where he's being polite but disengaged, then you're being able to demonstrate that then comes down to potentially demonstrating it only through people who are mutual. What I mean by that, if there are people who know you, that are around you, that see you, and people who also are in contact with him, the same people, then as you demonstrate the PIEs, because and I'll get Kimberly just in a second to go through them again to make sure that all of our audience understands what we mean when we say PIEs. But when you go through the PIEs, you go through them for you, not the other person. Because if you were doing it for the other person, if he or she's not responding like you expect them to, then you'll stop doing them. But if you're doing them for yourself, and again, Kimberly will explain in a moment what they are. If you're doing them for yourself, and if there are any mutual people People that see you, people that are around you, people that have actual exposure to you, not just a phone call because they live down in Ohio. I mean, people that actually have experience around you. That also, for whatever reason, have contact with around him. Then what can happen is, as you work on the pies, it actually becomes part of conversation. At least it hopefully does. That whenever they're talking to him, they're saying things such as, wow, you should see how Lana has changed. She's even prettier than she was before. Physical. Now, physical is not just about beauty, so I need to clarify that. She's in better shape than she's ever been, actually be a better way to say that. And she is just fun to be around now. As a matter of fact, she's become more sensitive. That's what would come under the E, the emotional. And when those kinds of things can come secondhand. Now, we had a guy contact our office not long ago and say, well, Dr. Beam said I should find somebody and program them to tell my ex that. No.
Did they really?
They really did.
They're getting it mixed up with other stupid advice on YouTube.
Because I have never said go find somebody and program him or her to tell the other person.
That's going to backfire.
And it did. And there goes, they said, why did Dr. Beam say to do that when it backfired? Well, because I've never said that. It's not smart. It does not make sense.
No.
And so the way that it's going to work, if it works at all, and you understand the situation you're in is difficult, it may not work. And we're not going to give any false promises. Unlike some other people out there who, if you do this and you do that, I'll guarantee you that's going to happen. We'll always tell you the truth, even if you don't want to hear it. And so it does become a very difficult situation where this may not work. And so quickly, if you will, just identify the pies again so that people who are new to that will understand what we're talking about.
Sure. The pies are what Joe and I used to talk about, the 4 areas of attraction, which are physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. Because most people only think about that physical aspect, but in fact, it's not the most important part of attraction. There's so many things that go with that. We have a video on YouTube about it that you can go to and find, that I talk more about the pies in depth there and get more information there. But you do the pies first and foremost for you. You do it because it makes you the best person that you can be in all of those areas. And so that's why you do it. The secondary benefit is for it to attract your spouse back or attract someone to you or whatever that might be. That's a secondary benefit. That's not the focus. That's not the reason. That's not the why behind it. Your why should always be because you want to do it to make yourself the best version of you that you can be. And in that way, you can't let yourself down. You always win when that's your focus.
Okay, so becoming the best you can be physically, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, that pretty well covers life. And so becoming the best that you can be, period. And hopefully when that happens, the other person, in your case, if he hears about it, because you can't call him up and tell him this is what I'm doing.
Right.
If he hears about it, then hopefully it becomes attractive where he potentially comes back to you. I don't know of any magic pill, any magic words to say. I really don't. But there's also a thing we talk about, but it seems like you're probably doing it, called smart contact, as opposed to Mort, for example, who will often encourage people to call every day, even if the other person responds negatively, that you continue to contact them. We have seen that backfire again and again and again and again. And so we talk about smart contact, which is where you have contact that makes sense, but you don't continue any kind of contact that pushes the other person away. And so let's just illustrate that one more time. In a relationship, when a person leaves a relationship, they leave typically for one of 2 things. And this is big generic things here. Either the other person is pushing them out of the relationship, whether they realize that's what they're doing or not. They're pushing them out of the relationship, or there's something out there that is drawing them outside the relationship. And so if you're pushing them outside the relationship, and she was very honest to say, I would say things when things aren't going well, like maybe we just don't need to be together, maybe we need to split up. If you look at the research on that, the very first time that one of you mentions a divorce, the very first time that one of you mentions we should not be together, it actually weakens the relationship immediately because it starts putting thought in the other person's mind, well, maybe we should. And the more that people talk about, the more they talk about we shouldn't be together, perhaps we should just end this thing, then the less strength there is in holding you together. Because more and more you've planted those doubts. And I'm not trying to beat you up, Lana. I'm really not. I mean, I realize you didn't understand the effect of all that you were doing. But if everybody else out there understand, when you start mentioning those things, you actually start planting seeds for that to happen. And that becomes a big push. Then if there's a pull out here, if the push here is big, the pull doesn't have to be very strong. Now, if things are really good and they get pulled out of a marriage just because of a really strong pull out there, if you want to ask more questions about that, we'd be glad to explain it. But in a relationship, relationships are tough no matter what. So do the best you can to keep them together. And I hope that if you practice these things we're talking about, I really truly hope that at some point the word would get back to him and that becomes a good thing. It's just that you know that the odds of that happening are not nearly as strong as if he were still living in the house with you. You understand, right? Can you summarize all I just said? Because I just rambled a little bit.
Summarize it. Rewind and listen again. No, yes, we do the pies for us. We do all of those things to make us the best that we can be. But there's going to be times in relationships where a person might not stay the way we want them to. They might leave, they might move, whatever that might be. We can't try and manipulate or control them to come back. It never works. Really, the only thing we can do is continue to focus on ourselves and be aware of the things that we did that caused to the breakdown of the relationship and not do those things as we continue to move forward in hopes that if they come back, then you're already doing the work to make the relationship work. Someone asked me this on a webinar the other day. They said, why should I be the one to make any changes when my spouse is the one who wants the divorce? And I think that is the mindset that ends up to so many divorces happening. Mm-hmm. They're the problem. They're the ones who need to change. And if they would change, then our marriage would work. Here is the truth. This is exactly what I said on the webinar. You're not a perfect spouse. I'm not a perfect spouse. And I teach this stuff. Like I still go home and screw it up. The thing that we have to realize is none of us are perfect. And if I'm the one right now who is willing, then why wouldn't I do what I can to make the changes, to do what works, to make a healthy relationship regardless, in hopes that it's going to make the marriage work? That is what ends up making marriages stronger.
Right. And we're not talking about what's fair. Like, well, if he or she's the one leaving, they ought to do the changing. We're just talking about if you want to help save the relationship, if you want to do the things that are more likely to save the relationship, then the only person you can control is you. Mm-hmm. And that's why you do it, whether it feels fair or not.